Good evening again, everyone. Congratulations to all our newly inducted Mississauga Life members.
Bill has asked two of his lifelong friends, MJ, and me, LA, aka the Alphabet Girls, to speak about him tonight, and we are so honored, Bill and Julia.
I've known Bill and his family since they joined Missy a really long time ago.
And I arrived on the scene shortly after as a rival paddler from the North Bay Canoe Club in the early 80s. Where's that Go Bay Go? Where'd that go? That's it. We decided the best way to celebrate this honor for you, Bill, this evening was to have a few of your fellow paddlers and coaching colleagues share some stories about you. But trust us, they're not going to have the mic. We are.
Mark made us promise that we wouldn't share the mic. So our first story is from Mary Bruce Ellery, who talks about the one and only Bill Trailing. She says, I coached Bill in Bantam Boys War Canoe in my second or third year of paddling at Missy in the mid-70s. We had a lot of fun in that boat. We won Ontario's that year against a huge crew of man boys from Rouge. And Bill was a great paddler. Years later, Bill coached me in Ladies War Canoe, and from what I understand, you had to make a difficult decision switching some of the lefts to rights, and you let Mary stay on the left, which meant that you had to stay on the right as the Cox. She's thankful for that. More recently, before the Rio Paralympics, Bill came to Ashridge's Bay at Balmy Beach and came out in the coach boat with me as I coached Erica. This is where Bill excelled, pinpointing weaknesses and helping to devise a race plan for Erica and myself. Bill was a great mentor. Here's to our many years of friendship, Bill. I wish I could be there to raise a glass with you. Big cheers. Oh, I get to tell another story. So Bill's grown into his good judgment, like many a young paddler has. In 1979, I coxed the Mississauga Senior Men's War Canoe in the last open mile event in canoe kayak history. And when I was refreshing my memory, because I thought that in the Book of Champions it had a list of all the people that were in the cruise, I discovered that the Book of Champions says that the race was suspended. And I know that there's no damn way that race was suspended because Frank Garner and I had paddle oars all the way down the course. The event was held in Welland, and after winning a hard-fought medal, the overzealous Bill Trailing decided that the Cox should be thrown into the canal. Being the leader that he was, it happened. And all was good until he met with the wrath of Mama Faye on the dock in front of all of his friends, who showed no mercy to poor Bill, letting him know that it wasn't okay. I was being married the next week, and what if I'd gotten hurt or gotten sick? Bill, you know you've been forgiven a long time ago for that one.
Our next story is from Peter Koshnow, a very dear friend of Bill's. He says that kayakers and canoers, like oil and water, have never mixed well. Why would anyone thinking that sitting on their butts and spinning their arms is any kind of fun? Bill was my first foray into understanding, appreciating, and having a kayak friend. In 1982, Bill and I were new teammates at Oakville Racing Canoe Club. I had come from Mohawk and Bill from Mississauga. The CCA championship format always raced the junior men's K1 500-meter final ahead of the junior men's C1 500-meter final back in the days when it was really easy to do a race card. So Bill and I were scheduled to race back-to-back. That year in Montreal, Bill raced a phenomenal K1 race, came down the course to win. Because my race was next, I was able to see him from the 250-meter mark, and I couldn't contain my cheering. As Bill won, I gave myself a mental and physical fist pump. Bill's performance was inspiring for all of the Oakville team, but more so for me, said Peter. I knew I was ready. I was able to win my race, and the momentum for Oakville was in full swing as we went on to win our second CCA championship. This accomplishment has bonded Bill and I ever since. Many years later, we still exercise our friendship. I will tell no stories, Bill. I only see what I see on Facebook. Even though that kayak thing still confuses Peter. Bill's accomplishments and achievements as a paddler are clear. His contribution to the Mississauga Canoe Club will always be here. However, Bill's support for the sport of canoeing, coaching, and more so the athlete is infectious. He has an incredible ability to help young athletes realize their strengths while identifying and overcoming weaknesses. I truly believe that Bill's post-paddling career has been as impactful as his paddling resume. I am thankful to the Mississauga Canoe Club tonight for inducting Bill as a life member. He is a remarkable ambassador and legacy to the Mississauga Canoe Club. Congratulations, Bill, from your friend Peter. I'm not showing you how many pages are here, but this is truly very important, so please bear with us. Many of the people who have written tonight are here, and we want to honor all of them who are honoring Bill. Chris Kautsky tells us that in the winter, I was able to attend Bill's 60th birthday celebration. It was clear from the size of the event that a lot of people wanted to join in on the celebration because Bill has touched so many lives. I wish I could have been here in person this evening, Bill, to see and hear the recognition of your contributions to the Mississauga Canoe Club, but unfortunately I'm away and unable to do so. I do, however, have a couple of brief stories to share that might give you a better sense of who Bill is. Both stories relate to Bill's generosity. 1986 was my best year in paddling. That summer I won Junior K1 at the Canadian Canoe Championships, and while I can't remember my results at the national team trials in the spring, they were good enough to get me into the World Championship team because the competition was in Montreal that year and a larger than normal team was being sent. Along with lots of other people, Bill and I were sitting at a table, as many of you here tonight would remember, waiting for the team announcement after all the races were finished. We were both uncertain where we would end up. Much to my surprise, my name got announced, and what I will never forget is that Bill was almost happier for me than he was for himself. I think I might have been in shock. He said a quiet congrats, squeezed my leg hard, and in the moment Bill knew how much the announcement making the team meant to me and set aside his own success or failure to celebrate mine. Another example of Bill's generosity was a little over a year later. I had since decided to give up kayaking and return to Western to finish off my university education. As I was still in very good shape from all the training I had done that year, Bill approached me in the fall to see if I wanted to join him to race the Malakaiho outrigger race. I initially declined as I barely had enough money to cover tuition, rent, and food, but that didn't stop Bill. He immediately responded by saying he'd lend the money and I could pay him back whenever. I have it. So off we went to Vancouver to join the False Creek Outrigger team and on to Hawaii to race. It was truly one of the best trips of my life and the main reason I ended up moving to BC a few years later, and I'm going to add that he married his lovely wife Jan. Without Bill's selflessness, that would never have happened. So congratulations on your induction as a life member, Bill, and thank you so much for these and so many other memories and acts of generosity over the years. Your good friend, Chris.
Bill, I'm going to ask you if you remember August 9th, 1999. Come on, your short-term memory's not gone. Two enthusiastic young paddlers named Matt and Chris Abbott were invited to the Missy Canoe Kids Camp by head coach Bill so that they could enjoy a big club Eastern experience and hopefully catch the paddling bug that had infested their parents' genes. Laura Clemenhagen was their instructor, so right away they were bitten. She was the best. She'd been led by Bill. She was awesome. They were in love with the sport. The day they were to leave to go back to BC, the camp took the dragon boat up the credit, and Matt, in a pubescent lapse of judgment, decided that gunnel bobbing in a dragon boat would be a lot of fun, and ended up with a green stick fracture across the growth plate of his femur. By then, Bill had developed better judgment and followed up by asking if the club should be getting a lawyer. I responded, "Why? It's not your fault, my kid's an idiot." And that's how we evened out the lefts and the rights in the Abbott crew. Laura tells us, after this experience with Bill, that he was great as a head coach and that he led through his ability to see and name your potential. He spent time asking questions and getting to know you. He prioritized learning about you as an individual. He had the ability to see that inner light in all of us and nudge us towards us, guiding you to a place where you could see it too. Bill could change your internal dialogue from why me to why not me. Bill's a storyteller. He takes events from his past, your past, and creates a narrative that uplifts and motivates. He sees a future for you that you might not see and says, "See what you can do." We're all grateful to Bill for his commitment, his guidance, and his wisdom, especially those from the Collingwood Canoe Club who have recently benefited so much from his gifts.
James Cartwright from Canoe Kayak Canada tells us that it has been a real privilege to work and learn from Bill in his time working with Canoe Kayak Canada. Bill's passion for paddling and thirst for teaching and inspiring a new generation of coaches and paddlers is palpable. He has always been able to build strong personal connections with his students, coaches, and athletes. Bill's connection and numerous contributions to the Canadian paddling family will certainly be long-standing. He has coached so many young athletes and facilitated numerous coaching workshops in many paddling communities across our great country called Canada. During the pandemic, Bill also helped out to pivot CKC's coaching workshops into an online classroom format. It comforts me to know that Bill's influence will be felt for many, many years to come as our next generation of coaches transfer Bill's wisdom and mentoring to a new generation of paddlers. It's me again. Sorry. Doug Tutty, Mississauga Canoe Club head coach. You know, when I think of Bill and his time coaching at Mississauga Canoe Club, I think of an elite athlete, which Bill was, and the rare qualities that these types of athletes possess. And that's not a bad thing, because I know there are some very elite athletes in the room. However, what I want to say is that usually you would think these types of athletes may not be the type of coach that Bill has been. Bill worked with absolutely any athlete or crew that needed him or whomever he was asked to coach. Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4 athletes, not the rock stars of the canoe club, those that needed his time and attention to develop. Some of these paddlers were considered our development athletes. A second or third war canoe, Bill, can you cox them? Can you coach them? And Bill's answer was always, yep, no problem. I found this rare because he was such a high-level athlete, as I already mentioned. Bill was every person's coach. He did whatever was needed, always. I recall in the winter asking Bill to coach a lesson for our paddlers in Nordic skiing. He's laughing. Bill said, "I'm in." Doug wanted to pay him, and Bill would have nothing to do with that, because that is Bill. He ran an amazing session, and I just wanted to share some of the best thoughts that I have about Bill as a coach: giving, caring, and never expecting anything back.
Stott, it's your turn. Words from Kevin Stott, a teammate, even though he was a canoeer. Lifelong friends and many shared memories. Kevin says, I met Bill back in 1975 or 76. Billiam, my nickname for Bill, was at the club with his hockey team, and some were being recruited to paddle at Missy to help with their hockey training. Bill reminded me a couple years ago that I helped convince him to join the club. Bill's mom, Faye, and my mom became friends. They would hang out together at regattas and talk for endless hours on the phone. My mom and I still talk about those days and the trailings. I would hate to hear what they say. Bill and I paddled at Missy together for many years and also paddled at many World Cups and World Championships. Even though Bill was a kayaker and I was a canoeer, we still like to hang out together. Bill's everybody's friend. In 1984, Bill and I both just missed making the Olympic team, so we had all kinds of time to hang out together in the summer. I think it was me who came up with the idea of cycling to the North Bay Regatta. In a heat wave, no less. Kevin Wallace, Tinker from Burloak, myself and Bill hit Highway 10 to our first stop in Meaford, where we stayed for a day with Kevin Lai, my former father-in-law. The next day we were back on the bikes to ride all the way to North Bay in the heat wave, riding on a fairly major trucking route, Highway 11. I remember filling our water bottles with cold water that turned warm in minutes. We also found some cold water streams that we lay in to cool our body temperature. I will always cherish that summer when Bill and I hung out, mostly in Port Credit, enjoying the summer weather and continuing to train for CCA. I remember one year in the 80s, Bill and his family hosted a New Year's Eve party where he was offering tequila, which I never really liked, and I almost got sick. Kevin says thanks for the great memories and those that aren't so good. So now we continue on with one of Bill's other teammates, a kayaker, lifelong friend, Mark Holmes. Mark says, as you're honored today for your commitment to the Mississauga Canoe Club, it takes me back to our 10 and 11-year-old selves, starting out down here, spending all day on the river. Small boat practice in the morning, to pleasure canoeing up the golf course to collect golf balls, and subsequently throwing them all back in the river when we got back. Jumping off the Lakeshore Bridge, that's against the law, hey Mark? Half moons. Now, Elaine and I had a few laughs about this one when we got it, because it was like, why would you do half a moon? Why don't you do a whole moon? And after we went back and forth for a while, we discovered that half moons are actually those little Vachon Twinkie cakes. Right? Like, what's a half moon?
That took us 12 hours to figure out. And a conversation this evening.
So then they did pop and chips at the store down the road to keep themselves going. Ended up running the Grand. I don't know if you can still do that here, can you? Yeah,
every day.
and always the fun war canoe practice. Our racing days started out as Missy Regatta winners and moved on to EOD to Dominion Day Regatta, which was a big deal back in the day. Then to Ontario Championships, several Canadian Championships, North American Championships, and going to Junior Worlds together in Bulgaria. Our training sessions were with our old Eastern Bloc Hungarian coach, taking us out in the lake and looking back to see if he knew we were still there. We'd just ask him, how far do we go? And he'd say, just keep going. Don't stop. We weren't allowed to have a drink of water during our workouts, which made us enjoy drinking the river water when he wasn't looking. I think of the days on Center Island when Faye and Bill, always big supporters of the canoe club, in their station wagon full of food and drinks. Our national team days, I think of our times in Florida, ABCs, playing a game of kick, catch and run, a few daiquiri parties.
You daiquiri parties, that was us. We don't need to sell that.
Our time in Vermont getting ready for Worlds in Montreal. When canoeing stopped, we kept our Harvard trips alive, and one last year didn't disappoint us with a whole new set of funny stories that Maura will be telling for years to come. Congratulations, Bill, on your induction, and thank you for 48 years of memories and friendship. Love, Mark.
Just give me a second here, technology. Okay, so as you've heard, we've had a number of stories, and at this point I have to interject apparently this individual is asking for a post-entry, which we usually don't allow at national championships, but Peter Needry just happened to respond a little late. As a coach, you should know better. But anyway, we want to read. I have to read it off my phone.
Not the first paragraph.
No, see, yeah, no, it's a PG event. I can't read that. But Bill, I will say that He does want to say that to Bill, that the t-shirt, that you know what beats canoeing, the only thing that beats canoeing. And we'll talk about this later in private. However, I would like to say that Peter Nedry did say that was the best t-shirt ever on the planet. And I would say that, what's that? He wasn't allowed to buy it, but he loved it. And we'll talk about it later, but there's something that beats, the only thing that beats canoeing. And that's probably why CKC made a rule and had the vendors' t-shirts all checked out because of that t-shirt. So just so you know, you helped us with some more rule-making, Bill. From Peter Nedry, what I will and can say, my memory of Bill was a 16-year-old seeing Bill in a K4 on the credit, training for the 1988 Olympics. I was awestruck, even though canoeing was way better. Remember, we didn't write these. We asked people to write them. Hold on here, I gotta get back to where I was. I can't make it bigger. As an athlete at Missy before heading to Ottawa for school, Bill started coaching at Missy with a rock star team of him and Tuddy, under the tutelage of head coach Mac Hickox. Bill was so crucial for that kayak group back then and did nothing short of giving everything he could do to that group. He supported the work we were trying to do at CKC around athlete development and coaching development. He jumped right in after I trained him as an LF in 2013 at Missy, traveling all over Canada, developing coaches, Northwest Territories, Yukon, BC. He supported on the development and finalizing of the Stage 4 technical model, ELCC, advanced module, and much of the GMP podium pathway work. Amazing work by Bill. Probably one of the last more recent stories of me working with him. Can I say this one? Because I haven't read it yet. Okay. Last project with CKC before I left. It was a U16, U17 project in 2016. Hard to believe, Bill, that was 7 years ago. A training camp in Chelsea, and oh, I did read this, and a Canada Cup tour. Bill was one of the coaches along with Ben Russell and Liu Grenier. Bill was such a great mentor to the athletes and to Liu. But I don't know if this is a story I don't want to remember or a funny one. We were staying in Wakefield, Quebec one morning. Bill, Ben, and I went out for a 6 a.m. run in the Gatineau Park. I think we know what the Gats are like in early July with deer flies. Don't know what Bill ate that, that night before, but it certainly wasn't agreeing with him. And as he had several stops along the way through the run, absolute torture, as you can imagine, getting swarmed by deer flies while Bill deals with his digestive issues. I'll just leave it at that. Oh my goodness. I'm going to get the last part there. I think my phone just died. No, it's all good. Bear with me. I think you had one more line in there, Peter. See you tomorrow night. Cheers, Bill.
Okay, we're back on with one more teammate, Duncan Robbins, who calls Bill the legend. Bill's extraordinary. I've known and looked up to Bill most of my life, not just because he's 2 years taller, or 2 inches, not 2 years, 2 inches taller, or because he's always standing on the higher podium, but because he's such a damn good soul, a friend, a mentor, a coach, a healer. After I left paddling in Canada, Bill was one of my lifelines to home. He and a small flotilla of rabble-rousers would make the pilgrimage down to Harvard every second year to check in on me and the Harvard-Yale game. Bill and the crew became legends on the Harvard campus and infamous in the local bars as the Canadians. Prior to each tailgate, my roommates would grill me, "Are the Canadians coming? Are the Canadians coming?" To which I would yell, "The Canadians are coming! The Canadians are coming!" warning of the impending invasion. Each time Bill and his Canadian K4 invaded, they always made a huge impact. Who could resist joining Bill and the rest of the Canadians in a friendly round of pigs? Inevitably, carnage ensued, resulting in many American casualties, and too many stories to tell.
But those trips were about more than just drinking. Good friends became great friends as we reluctantly matured. We pushed and prodded, but also supported and celebrated each other through the challenges that each of us were facing. Needless to say, Bill was always the rock, the safety net that we all needed, and yes, the guy who made sure we all got home safely. Bill, congratulations on yet another recognition. You deserve it. I'm sorry I can't be there this evening to give you a hug or make you chug. But I know you're surrounded by many who care deeply. See you at the next tailgate. Love, Duncan. P.S. Duncan did make a surprise visit this week, we're happy to say, and had the opportunity to see you earlier in the week, Bill, so we're pretty thrilled that he got a chance to see you. MJ's just going to wrap up with the closing. She's just grabbing something, and then...
So years ago, Bill wrote a chapter in a book called Heroes in Our Midst. And I encourage any of you that are interested in stories about athletes to try and pick up a copy of this because it's an amazing book.
Can you hold that up?
In the book, Bill talked about a promise that he had made to his dad, and how a young girl, who's now a young woman, an Olympian, a wife, and a mother, and who I was hoping would be here tonight, made him reevaluate his promise, because she paddled to make friends and have fun. He committed to helping others make the team of their choice and fulfill their dreams.
Bill, it's clear from the stories this evening that you've heard that you are more than deserving of this award. You're a dream leader who's inspirational, motivational, selfless, generous, kind, extraordinary, and an amazing friend.
Duncan said it best when he said you were one of his lifelines. It's our turn to be your lifeline and return to you what you've given to us. Bill, like every great family, you're the glue that binds us together. And behind you, there's an unbelievable team that's supported you and will continue to support you. Julie? In particular, your extraordinary efforts as Bill's partner have not gone unnoticed as days go by. You're both heroes in our midst.
Come on up. Please accept this life membership with the congratulations of more friends than you will ever know. Congratulations, Bill Trilling.
Julia, can you come too, please? Because I should give you a kiss.
First off, Goodman is proud of our award system, and the Hall of Fame Life Member Committee is pleased to present to Bill, Life Member, Bill Trailing. Well deserved. Love you, bud.
Way to go, Bill! Mississauga.
Hey everybody, can you hear me? So Bill asked me to give a voice to some of his words. So what I'm going to share with you now are his words, not mine. Don't go too far back. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for this honor tonight. I'd also like to congratulate my co-honorees, Jean and Andrew. As I sit here tonight in a place where I experienced so much of my growth, I'd simply like to offer everyone gratitude. To the current athletes, parents, coaches, and board members who carry on the Missy tradition every day. To my former athletes, coaching colleagues, parents, and board members, you served as both the wind in my sails and my keel. You allowed me to grow as a coach, a leader, and as a human being. And because of the manner in which we worked together, we were able to create pervasive culture of holistic human excellence that reverberated for years, and it still exists today. To Julia, for your endless love and support throughout. Our story is a true love story. You are my angel. And I'm so proud to share my life with you. To our children, Molly, Mason, and Weston, the flame is now yours to carry. We trust that you will do so, knowing that you are loved immensely. And to our dear friends, Nuns and George, you have and continue to be there for us. And to all those unnamed who are here to celebrate with us tonight, I'm so humbled by your presence and lifted up by your love. Always remember first. Go.